I was under the sink fixing a leak when I heard the sentence that broke my marriage. My name's Ethan. I'm 37. I work remote tech support from home, fix things around the house, and apparently don't excite my wife anymore. Her name's Lauren. We've been married 9 years. No kids. Just a rescue cat neither of us really bonded with and a fridge full of expired condiments. We live in a modest 2-story house in a quiet part of Indianapolis. Brick exterior. Overgrown lawn. You know the kind, looks good on Zillow but dead inside if you've lived in it long enough. This all started about 3 weeks ago. That morning, I was under the kitchen sink trying to fix a small leak. Water had been dripping since the night before, and I finally had time to deal with it. I had a flashlight in my mouth and a wrench in my hand when I heard her voice from above, soft, serious, like someone trying to sound casual while saying something final. He's just not the man I thought he'd be. Pause. Then quieter. I'm done, Paige. Like, really done. I just haven't told him yet. I froze. My grip on the wrench tightened so hard it slipped. The clang of metal hitting pipe echoed like a gunshot. Then silence upstairs. A few cautious footsteps creaked along the floorboards, and then stopped. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. I just stayed crouched under the sink, heart racing, listening to rust water drip from a copper valve while my whole life cracked down the middle. I don't know how long I stayed there. Could have been 5 minutes, could have been an hour. Eventually, I climbed out and sat on the cold tile, staring at nothing. Lauren didn't say anything about it later. No questions like, did you hear something weird earlier? Or, hey, everything okay with the pipes? She just acted normal, which made me feel insane. That night, she made dinner, something with quinoa and kale, and talked about a client issue like she hadn't just emotionally abandoned our marriage that morning. I nodded. I smiled. I played along. But I started taking notes. I found an old spiral notebook and wrote. April 10th, heard her tell someone named Paige that she's done with me. She doesn't know I heard. That was the first entry. I didn't write to build a case or plan revenge. I wrote because I needed to remember that I hadn't imagined it, that I wasn't paranoid, that I wasn't crazy. Things had been off for months, subtle stuff. Lauren smiled like it was muscle memory. She texted during dinner. She scrolled through her phone in bed with her back turned, the glow of the screen washing her face in this cold, pale blue. I asked her once if she was okay. She said, yeah, just tired, and then changed the subject to a podcast about home organization. She used to hum while brushing her hair. That stopped last fall. At first, I blamed myself. I worked late. I wasn't great at surprises or spontaneous trips. I forgot her birthday once. Well, I remembered it the day of, but I didn't plan anything. I've always been solid, predictable, steady. Turns out, some people mistake steady for stagnant. She started staying later at work. Said she had to network with clients, attend mixers, show face. I never questioned it. She came home in dresses I'd never seen before, smelling like unfamiliar perfume. Then her phone got a new lock code. Then she stopped kissing me goodbye. Then she laughed too hard at text from someone named M. I kept writing it all down. April 12th, came home late. Said it was a work thing. Smelled like cologne, not mine. April 14th, changed her phone password. I didn't ask. She didn't offer. I didn't confront her. Not then. Not because I was scared of the truth. Because I already knew it. And deep down, I think she did too. I wasn't supposed to hear the sentence that cracked open my marriage. I wasn't even in the room. I was under the kitchen sink, trying to fix a leak that had been dripping since the night before. Flashlight in my mouth, wrench in my hand, half soaked in rust water. That's when I heard it, her voice, low, tired, private. He's just not the man I thought he'd be, she said. Pause. I'm done, Paige. Like, really done. I just haven't told him yet. Something inside me clenched. I didn't even notice my grip on the wrench tightening until it slipped and banged against the pipe. The clang was loud. Upstairs went silent. Then I heard footsteps. Soft. Tentative. Then they stopped. She never said anything. Not then. Not later. She didn't ask, did you hear something? She didn't bring up Paige or explain the sentence I wasn't supposed to hear. She just acted like it hadn't happened. And that made it worse. My name's Ethan. I'm 37. I work remote IT for a healthcare company and live in the suburbs outside Indianapolis. My wife, Lauren, is 35. Event planner. We've been married 9 years. No kids. Just a rescue cat and a bunch of frame prints from places we visited before our marriage started rusting around the edges. The thing is, I always thought we were stable. Boring, maybe, but solid. I never imagined I'd become a stranger in my own house. But after that morning, I started noticing everything. Lauren smiled like she was remembering how. She said, "Uh-huh," without hearing what I said. She took phone calls in other rooms and stayed longer at work, blaming clients I'd never heard of in venues that apparently had no websites. I didn't confront her. Instead, I started writing things down. Not in an app. In a real, physical notebook. One of those cheap spiral ones with lined paper and a bent corner. On the first page, I wrote, April 10th, heard Lauren say, "I'm done," on the phone. Name, Paige. Doesn't know I heard. At first, it felt silly. Like I was keeping score in a game I didn't want to play. But the more I wrote, the less crazy I felt. Because gaslighting doesn't always come from the other person. Sometimes it's internal. A voice that says, "You're overthinking. She's stressed. You're making it worse." But the notebook didn't lie. It just quietly gathered the truth. April 12th, she came home late. Said she had a meeting. Smelled like cologne. Not mine. April 14th, changed her phone passcode. Didn't say why. New behavior. I didn't know what I was looking for. Proof? Permission to leave? Something final? But I knew that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. And then came the burner phone. I wasn't snooping. I was cleaning. Honest. We'd both been letting the living room go to hell, couch cushions sliding off, wrappers stuck between pillows. I was halfway through vacuuming when I pulled off the cushions and found it, a small, black phone wedged between the seams. Not her iPhone. This one was cheap. Plastic. Cracked corner. I held it. It buzzed. One notification. Can't wait for tonight. I miss your voice. My stomach dropped. I didn't unlock it. I didn't try. I just put it back exactly where I found it and wrote another note in the spiral. April 17th, found second phone. Text from M. Romantic. Not work. She doesn't know I saw it. The next morning she made pancakes. Kissed my cheek. Were perfume she only uses when she's guilty. I knew the difference. And I smiled. Because people always think the most dangerous betrayal is the loud one, the scream, the affair caught mid-act, the shouting match at 2 a.m. But no. The worst kind is the quiet kind. The kind you have to excavate. The kind that leaves no bruises, just blank spaces where honesty used to be. So I acted normal. Let her think I was still the same guy. Still clueless. Still solid. But that afternoon, after she left, I checked the couch. The burner phone was gone. She knew he'd texted. And she didn't panic. That scared me more than anything. Then came the motel. She said she had a client dinner. I waited 20 minutes after she left, then checked the AirTag I had quietly tucked into the lining of her trunk. I know how that sounds. But when someone smiles at you while lying, you either question them, or you start questioning reality itself. The dot stopped at a Days and Off Route 40. I drove there. Parked across the lot. I saw her car. Waited. 15 minutes later, she got out. Tight dress. Hair curled. Holding the burner phone. A man pulled up soon after. Tall. Clean cut. Looked like someone who sells mid-level software to dental clinics. She handed him the phone. Not sheepishly. Not with fear. Like it was protocol. They walked inside together. And that's when I knew this wasn't an affair in progress. This was a system. A second life. Planned. Protected. I didn't follow them. I just sat there, watching the glass doors of the motel reflect back a version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. That night, I opened a folder on my computer. It was labeled, "If Things Go Bad." I'd made it as a joke years ago, filled with random backups, insurance copies, house deed PDFs. That night, I added the photos. The motel. The car. The texts. And a copy of our prenup. Because she forgot we had one. I didn't. After that night, something in me went quiet. Not broken. Not angry. Just still. Lauren came home around midnight. She didn't look surprised that I was still awake. She kissed me on the forehead like a nurse checking a chart. Said something about traffic. I nodded. I don't know what she expected, questions, suspicion, a passive-aggressive comment. But I gave her nothing. Ghost mode. The less I reacted, the more I saw. She started testing me, I think. Dropping comments to see if I'd flinch. You've been so chill lately. That breathing app working or something? Work's been crazy. I might need to travel next weekend. It's nice that we can be low maintenance, you know? Like, not get in each other's space. Every time, I just nodded. Because sometimes, silence tells the other person more than screaming ever could. I started working from a co-working space downtown. I told her it was for focus. Really, I just needed to breathe somewhere that didn't smell like her dry shampoo and secondhand guilt. At the office, I printed everything. Statements, shared accounts, car registration, the prenup. I highlighted parts she probably hadn't read since we signed it 8 years ago in a Starbucks, laughing like we were immune to the worst parts of marriage. Clause 14b. In the event of emotional abandonment or infidelity, no spousal support will be rendered. She signed that with a heart next to her name. Cute. I called an attorney. Not to file. Not yet. Just to ask questions. Quiet ones. He didn't sound surprised. Does she know you know? No. Good. Keep it that way. Lauren, meanwhile, got bolder. Started leaving the house in full makeup for yoga. Started dressing up on rainy days. Started humming again. That one stung. She used to hum while brushing her hair. It stopped 2 years ago. Now, suddenly, she remembered how. And I realized, it wasn't that she'd forgotten who I was. She'd forgotten who we were. I wasn't her partner anymore. I was her backdrop. A few days later, I found something else. I was moving boxes in the garage, trying to find an old camping lantern. One box had her name written in pink Sharpie. College stuff. I hadn't touched it in years. Inside, under some old notebooks and a fake diploma from a bachelorette party, was a sealed envelope. My name was on it. Ethan. In her handwriting. No stamp. No date. Just my name. I didn't open it. I don't know why. Maybe I was scared it would confirm everything. Or maybe I knew, deep down, that anything inside it had been written for a version of me that no longer existed. I put it back in the box and closed the lid. That night, she texted me from upstairs. You okay? Yeah. Just tired. She sent a thumbs up. A thumbs up. And in that moment, I knew with perfect clarity. She had already left me. All I was doing now was choosing how I'd leave her. Lauren kept acting like everything was fine. She joked more. Played music while cooking. Even started calling me babe again, like slapping an old label on a cracked bottle would make it hold water. But I knew the truth. And the more normal she pretended to be, the more unnatural everything felt. I started preparing. Not a dramatic plan. No Hollywood exit. Just practical things. I moved my passwords off the shared cloud. Downloaded our bank statements for the last 2 years. Rented a P.O. box under a different zip code. Quiet steps. Logical ones. One morning she said, "You've been out of the house a lot lately." I just shrugged. Work's intense. She smiled. Good. You needed that. The audacity of that moment hit me like a brick. She thought I was healing. She thought this was helping. No. I wasn't healing. I was withdrawing. We were still sleeping in the same bed, but our bodies had long since stopped reaching for each other. We were a museum exhibit. Marriage in its final stage. Observe the artifacts, the polite distance, the shared air. Then one Thursday afternoon, the tone shifted. I was back at the co-working space when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Then a voicemail. And a text. Hi, this is Marcus. I'm a friend of Lauren's. I think we should talk. I stared at the screen for a long time. Marcus. M. He texted me. I played the voicemail on speaker. His voice was calm. Too calm. He said he wasn't trying to cause trouble, but felt like I deserved honesty. I didn't respond. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was angry, but because I finally understood something that had been clawing at me for weeks. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had invited someone else into the space where I used to live. Emotionally, physically, strategically. And now that person had the nerve to reach out to me like we were coworkers cleaning up the same mess. The next morning, I opened the envelope in the garage. It wasn't long, maybe 2 pages, written in her usual handwriting, curved, round, like she was always writing birthday cards. It said she was sorry, that she had been slipping for a while, that she didn't know how to talk to me anymore, that she missed the old versions of us. It wasn't an apology. It was a eulogy. No mention of Marcus. No mention of the motel. No mention of the burner phone or the emotional evacuation she'd already performed behind my back. I folded the letter, burned it in the sink, not out of anger, out of necessity, because some things don't deserve a drawer in your life anymore. And then came Saturday, the day she told me she was done. For real. Out loud. Like it was news. She walked into the kitchen while I was folding laundry. No preamble. Just, Ethan, I think I'm done. Just like that. Like she was canceling a subscription. I didn't blink. Okay, I said. She looked confused. Like I'd skipped a step in her script. That's it, she asked. I nodded. She tilted her head, voice sharper now. You're not going to fight? Ask why. I met her eyes. Calm. You already answered that 3 weeks ago. Her face twitched. She realized, right then, that I had heard, that I'd known. And still, she said nothing. No denial. No guilt. No attempt at rebuilding. Just silence. That was when I knew. She didn't want me to react. She wanted me to break so she could feel justified. But I didn't give her that. I went upstairs, grabbed a duffel bag I'd packed days earlier, picked up the notebook, and walked out. I didn't slam the door. Didn't look back. She didn't follow. She never even called. Maybe she thought I was bluffing. But I wasn't. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town. The kind of place where the lobby smells like burned coffee and the vending machines hum louder than the AC. I didn't care. I wasn't looking for comfort. I was looking for quiet. For distance. The woman at the front desk didn't ask questions. She just slid over the keycard like she'd seen this movie 100 times before. I appreciated that. The first night alone didn't feel like freedom. It felt like grief. I laid on that stiff mattress with the itchy sheets, staring at a cracked ceiling, and remembered things I hadn't let myself think about in months. Our first apartment with the slanted floors. How she used to sing in the car, windows down, long before playlists and podcasts replaced conversation. The camping trip where she lit a marshmallow on fire and kissed me while laughing. Memories are funny. They don't care if the person who gave them to you has changed. They still show up. Still sting. I reached into my bag and pulled out the notebook. The green spiral. The one that had quietly become a record of absence. A map of our slow, quiet erasure. I flipped through the pages. Dates. Texts. Places. Excuses. Lies. And then, without really meaning to, I turned to the back and started writing something else. Not about her. About me. I wrote. I let myself become invisible in my own life. Not just to her. To myself. I kept going. I wrote about the day she canceled our anniversary dinner an hour before it started, and I still told her it was fine, even though I'd spent 3 hours cooking. About the time she laughed too hard at a text from a coworker, and I pretended I didn't notice. About how often I said it's okay, just to keep the peace, even when it wasn't. I realized I'd been shrinking for years, softening my voice, smoothing out my rough edges, convincing myself that being quiet was the same as being kind. That's when it hit me. She didn't destroy me. She just exposed how unfinished I really was. The next day, I called in sick. Told my manager there was a family emergency. It wasn't a lie. My marriage had flatlined. That counts, right? Instead of logging on, I drove to a small bookstore downtown. One Lauren and I used to visit on weekends when life still felt curious. The bell above the door still jingled. The place still smelled like dust and cheap coffee. I sat in the corner we used to sit in. Held a book I wasn't reading. Watched strangers walk in and out holding hands like gravity didn't apply to them. That night back at the motel, I didn't feel angry. I felt empty. Not hollow. Just cleared out. Like something inside me had burned away, and the smoke was finally starting to lift. I went through our shared savings account that evening. She hadn't noticed it was frozen. I checked the prenup again. Highlighted the sections that mattered. I emailed the lawyer. Subject line, ready to move. A few days passed. She didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't show up at the motel door, sobbing or screaming. Nothing. Then one night, around 10:47 p.m., I parked 2 streets away from the house. I just wanted to see it. Not her. Just it. The lights were off. Porch light too. But her car was there. Then a gray sedan pulled into the driveway. Headlights stayed on longer than necessary. A man got out. Tall. Neatly dressed. Confident like someone with nothing to hide. He didn't knock. He typed in the code on the smart lock, the one I installed, and walked in like he belonged there. And she let him. No hesitation. No caution. Just welcome. I didn't cry. I didn't get out of the car. I just sat there. And thought. It wasn't that she moved on. It was how normal it looked. How easy. She didn't flinch. That's what tore at me most. The next morning, I checked out of the motel. The sheets still smelled like bleach and regret. But I'd gotten what I came for. Space. Confirmation. Silence. I drove across town to the co-working office I'd been using. She never knew about it. Always assumed I worked from home. She'd stopped asking where I was months ago. Inside, I laid everything out on the table. Printed records. Screenshots from our joint accounts. A timeline. Photos. Messages. The prenup. The burner phone text. and the statement that confirmed she'd opened a personal checking account under her maiden name 2 months ago. I wasn't angry. I was methodical. Every lie she thought I hadn't noticed was now printed, cataloged, and ready. Not for vengeance. For clarity. And that's when I decided. No slow fade. No prolonged postmortem over wine and tears. Just clean lines. I texted her for the first time since I walked out. We need to talk. Pick somewhere public. 15 minutes later, she replied. Lewis Cafe. Tomorrow. 6 p.m. Our old breakfast spot. Clever move. Familiar, disarming. She wanted to set the tone, make it feel civil. But I wasn't the man who used to walk into that cafe holding her hand like it meant safety. That man was gone. The next day, I walked in 5 minutes early. She was already there. Nails done. Necklace I bought her for our 7th anniversary. The same fake smile she used on clients she was about to overcharge. She tilted her head like a therapist. Ethan, she said. Thanks for meeting me. I sat down. No smile. She stirred her tea. I didn't expect you to leave like that. You said you were done, I said simply. Well, yeah, but I thought we'd talk. Figure things out. You know, like adults. Like you figured things out with Marcus? I asked. Her spoon stopped mid-circle. There it was. The tiny fracture in her expression. She didn't flinch. But her smile dropped at the corners. You've been spying on me? She asked. I've been observing. There's a difference. She leaned back. Crossed her arms. So this is the ugly version, huh? No, I said. This is the smart version. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila envelope. Slid it across the table. What's this? Exit plan. Signed by both attorneys. No alimony. I keep the house. You keep your car and the contents of your new personal account. Her eyes narrowed. You went through my bank statements? You left the tab open on your laptop. I didn't snoop. You just stopped caring if I saw. Silence. You said you were done, I continued. I just made sure we didn't waste any more time pretending otherwise. She looked down, bit the inside of her cheek. For a second, I saw it, not regret, not guilt, just shock that she hadn't controlled the narrative. You think you're the victim? She finally said, voice sharp. You were always passive. You ghosted through your own life. I nodded. You're right. I was passive. But ghosts see everything. And now I'm haunting the version of me you thought you could manipulate. She stood. Her chair scraped hard against the tile. I'll have my lawyer call yours, she snapped, grabbing the envelope. Already has, I said. 3 days ago. She paused. And then she walked away. Back straight. Heels clicking like punctuation marks. But her hands were shaking. As I watched her leave, I didn't feel triumph. Not even satisfaction. Just stillness. The kind you feel when a long storm finally ends, and you're left standing in the debris, not sure what to rebuild, but knowing exactly what not to. After Lauren walked out of the cafe, something inside me went completely still. It wasn't numbness. It wasn't shock. It was a strange kind of clarity. Like the final piece of a puzzle I'd been forcing into place had suddenly slid in effortlessly, and the picture I'd been avoiding was finally complete. I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't go home either. I drove to the east side of town and parked in a grocery store lot. Just sat there for over an hour, listening to the soft tick of the engine cooling and the occasional low murmur of shopping carts colliding. I kept seeing her walk away in my head. That perfect spine. Those trembling hands. It's strange what the body notices when the heart stops caring. My phone buzzed twice. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, it buzzed again. This time a text. This is Calvin. Lauren's brother. Call me. She's not doing well. I stared at it. Calvin. The guy who once gave me a handshake so hard I thought he was trying to dislocate my shoulder. The same guy who used to call me emotion because I was, in his words, too chill to be a real dude. I didn't answer. But the words, she's not doing well, kept bouncing around in my head like an echo without walls. That night, I slept in the car. Didn't even recline the seat. I just tilted my head back and stared at the roof until the sky turned gray. The next morning, my voicemail had filled up. 2 from Calvin. 1 from her mother. 1 from an unknown woman sounded like Paige. Ethan, I know this is out of line. Lauren's a mess. She's been crying for 2 days. You don't owe her anything, but maybe just check in. And then, finally, 1 from Lauren herself. Her voice cracked halfway through it. Ethan, I just want to understand. When did you start planning this? When did you become someone I don't recognize? There it was. Not guilt. Not remorse. Just disbelief. She was shocked not by what she did, but by how I reacted. I didn't respond. Instead, I went back to the hardware store, the one I'd passed 1,000 times and never entered. I needed new locks for the garage I'd been renting for storage, now my home base for everything I didn't want to see anymore. The old guy behind the counter, Milt, gave me a nod and a small box of tools. "Rough week?" he asked, like a man who's seen 100 divorces walk through his door. I just smiled, reinforcing things. That afternoon, I moved into the upstairs apartment above the hardware shop. Milt gave me a discount in exchange for helping him restock on weekends. I took it, not because I needed money, but because I needed to lift something heavy. Repeatedly, the days became physical. Pallets, boxes, shelves. I felt muscles I hadn't used in years. And every evening, I'd sit at the window of my new, smaller life, flipping through the green notebook. But I didn't write about Lauren anymore. I wrote about me. How I'd started waiting for permission to speak. How I mistook being agreeable for being supportive. How I'd let someone else's mood dictate the shape of my personality. About a week in, I stopped checking my phone altogether. And that's when she showed up. It was late, around 9:30. I just made coffee, too strong, too bitter, just the way I liked it. I heard the knock on the glass door downstairs before I saw her. Lauren, hair tied back, no makeup, hoodie I'd given her years ago, the one with a cigarette burned near the cuff. She didn't look angry. She looked scared. I didn't go down. I watched her from the second-floor window. She stood there for a while, arms wrapped around herself, like the night air was colder than she expected. She didn't knock again. Eventually, she left. 2 nights later, she came back. Sat in her car across the street for nearly 40 minutes. Didn't get out. Just stared at the building, like it was a museum of a life she used to live. I didn't go out. This happened 3 more times over the next week. Then, silence. No more calls. No more voicemails. No more drive-bys. And for the first time, I didn't feel tension. I felt stillness. A week later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a photo. Us. Lake Crescent. 6 years ago. I was holding a fish too small to matter. She was laughing. On the back, in her handwriting. This was real. For a while. I'm sorry I let it rot. No name. No note. Just that. I put the photo inside the back cover of the green notebook. Didn't cry. Didn't crumble. Just acknowledged it. She wanted to rewrite the ending. But I wasn't handing her the pen again. The real healing didn't come from her regret. It came from my silence. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can do is walk away and never return to the scene of your own erasure. There's a strange kind of quiet that settles over your life when the world stops waiting for your reaction. After Lauren stopped showing up outside the hardware shop, after the text and voicemails dried up, after even Calvin gave up on following up with me, there was nothing left but my own breath and the occasional creak of old pipes overhead. Some mornings I would wake up before the sun, sit in the window with black coffee, and just watch the street slowly return to life. Delivery trucks, dog walkers, people who didn't know my marriage had ended, people who didn't care. And that was oddly comforting. That my disaster wasn't the center of the universe. That I could just be a man drinking coffee in a second-floor apartment over a hardware store. I started making lists in the green notebook. Not the kind Lauren used to make, chore charts, grocery breakdowns, shared goals she always initiated but never really followed. My lists were simple. Real. Things I never said but should have. Things I said to keep the peace but didn't believe. Things I still want to do, even if I do them alone. One morning, at the very bottom of a to-do list that included get better screwdrivers and replace window seal, I wrote, "Stop narrating your life through someone else's eyes." I didn't realize I'd been doing it until that moment. Editing myself in real time. Not to deceive, but to survive. That afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi. Paige here. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I think you should see something. Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. Paige, Lauren's friend. The one from the phone call. The one who'd been on the other end of the line when I first heard, "I'm done." I didn't respond. Not at first. But something in me, it wasn't curiosity, exactly, said this was unfinished business. We agreed to meet on a bench outside the library. Public. Neutral. She was already there when I arrived, holding a paper cup of coffee and a small brown envelope. She looked nervous. Guilty, maybe. Like someone preparing to do the right thing a little too late. "She doesn't know I'm here," Paige said quickly. "Didn't think she did," I replied. She handed me the envelope. "She wrote it to you a week after you left. Never sent it. I found it by accident." I don't know why I kept it. I guess I just felt like, you deserve to read it. I didn't open it. Not right away. I just nodded, slipped it into my coat, and thanked her. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at the envelope like it was a relic. Something exhumed. Something not meant to be touched. Eventually, I opened it. 6 pages. Lined. Ink slightly smudged in places. It wasn't clean. It wasn't curated. It was raw. A confession, maybe. Or a final act of control. Or both. Lauren wrote about the fog she'd been in. How she started pulling away long before she even realized it. How the version of us she kept seeing in her head had stopped matching reality, and how she blamed me for that more than she should have. She said she thought I didn't care. That my silence, my calm, my constant steadiness felt like neglect. Like she was drowning and I was just sitting on the shore, watching. You never yelled. You never cracked. And that scared me. I mistook your quiet for absence. I thought maybe if I acted out, you'd finally react. But when you didn't, I convinced myself you didn't love me. She wrote about Marcus. Nothing physical. Not really. Emotional. Yes. Deeply. I used him like a mirror. I liked who I was around him because I hated who I'd become around you. Not because of you, but near you. Do you understand the difference? I don't know if I do. She said she kept secrets not to be cruel, but to feel in control. That she didn't mean for it to get so far. That the first time she lied, she felt powerful. The 10th time, she felt trapped. She ended the letter with, "You were better than I was willing to admit. And when you walked out without a word, it broke something in me I didn't know could break. If this is goodbye, then I hope someday I'm strong enough to become someone who wouldn't have let you go." I didn't cry. I didn't forgive. But I understood. And understanding is its own kind of release. I folded the letter and slid it into the back of the green notebook. Then I picked up a pen and wrote. What she never said to me face to face is the only thing I'll allow myself to carry forward. Not because I need it, but because it reminds me that even unfinished stories deserve endings. Rebuilding doesn't happen like it does in the movies. There's no stirring soundtrack, no montage of gym sessions and new hobbies. In real life, it's slower, quieter. It starts with getting up earlier than you need to, making your bed, washing your dishes immediately after using them, not because anyone will notice, but because you want proof you're still capable of creating order. I started with the little things. I fixed the squeaky cabinet in the kitchenette, bought a plant I wasn't sure I'd keep alive, cooked actual meals instead of just heating frozen ones. Milt noticed. He started leaving extra supplies for me downstairs, wood glue, wire cutters, even a new utility knife with a red handle. Said I looked like a guy who needed a project. He was right. One evening, he knocked on my door and handed me a box of old tools. Belonged to my brother. He passed a while back. Figured you'd make better use of him than I do. I was stunned. It wasn't just a gesture, it was recognition. Like he saw the shape I was trying to take, even if it didn't have a name yet. The green notebook had fewer entries now, but they were different. No more timestamps of Lauren's absences or contradictions. Now it was things I was rediscovering. I still love cinnamon toast. I laugh differently when no one's around. I can sleep without background noise again. It was healing without performance. No Instagram quotes. No declarations of strength. Just repair. I joined a running group. Hated every second of the first meetup. But I kept going. Not for the running. For the routine. For the reminder that I could choose discomfort for the right reasons. One Saturday, I passed by the bookstore again, the same one where Lauren and I used to sit in the back corner. I didn't hesitate this time. Walked in. Bought a sketch pad and a cheap set of pencils. I'd forgotten I used to draw. That night, I sketched the window across from mine. Then the street. Then a face. Not hers. Not anyone's. Just someone looking out, like I was. A few days later, I got a message from Levi, an old coworker. Heard you've gone ghost. Drinks? I said yes. We met at a dive bar downtown. Sticky floors. Neon signs. Exactly what I needed. After the second beer, Levi said, "No offense, man, but I always thought Lauren kind of scared people. Like, she walked into a room like she owned it and made everyone prove they belonged." I laughed. First genuine laugh in weeks. "You never did that," he added. "You just listened." I nodded. Sipped my drink. Let it land. Later that night, walking home, I saw a couple arguing quietly on a park bench. The woman said, "Just say something. Anything." The man crossed his arms. "I don't know what you want me to say." And just like that, I saw us. Me and Lauren. Same posture. Same silence. Only now, I wasn't in it. I was walking past it, around it, beyond it. A few weeks later, I got a text from Lauren's number. Just one line. "I hope you're doing okay." I didn't respond. Not out of anger. Out of wholeness. She didn't need my answer to heal. And I didn't need her question to move forward. I kept going. I started looking at other cities. Places I used to imagine living before we settled where her job dictated. I circled 3 towns on a map, rented a car, and planned weekend road trips. Before I left, I wrote one more thing in the green notebook. Leaving doesn't mean escaping. It means choosing. And I finally chose me. The first town I visited was called Ashland. Population just over 4,000, tucked between a river and a range of hills that caught fire in the fall, not literally, but in color. The trees were gold and red and sharp against the sky like stained glass. The air felt lighter, less processed. There were only 2 diners in town and a bookstore that doubled as a print shop. But for some reason, I exhaled deeper there. I'd rented a small cabin at the edge of town. No internet. Spotty cell service. It was perfect. I woke with the sun, made coffee over a battered gas stove, and sketched in silence. No podcast. No phone. Just birdsong and breath. In the stillness, I remembered things. Like how my mom used to hum while making breakfast. How my dad would sit at the kitchen table until the room was empty before finishing his coffee. I remembered the way Lauren used to say my name when she was tired, soft and rounded. And then how she stopped. But most of all, I remembered myself. Not as Lauren's husband. Not as the guy who didn't yell. Not as the quiet one who wrote things down and said nothing. Just me. It's wild how long you can live inside someone else's expectations. How long you can mistake peacekeeping for peace. I thought I was mature for being calm. Thought I was strong for absorbing discomfort instead of reacting to it. Turns out, I was just afraid of being inconvenient. Ashland gave me permission to feel inconvenient. To take up space again. On my last morning there, I stopped by the bookstore. The woman at the counter, Lane, recognized me from earlier in the week. "You sketch," she said, nodding at my pad. "Trying to," I replied. She smiled. "Most people just scroll while they wait. I like that you don't." We talked for a while. Nothing deep. Weather. Local events. The pie at the diner she swore was overrated. It wasn't romantic, but it was kind. And after so many months of disconnection, kindness felt revolutionary. When I left, she handed me a receipt with a note scribbled on the back. "If you ever stop passing through, stay a while." I folded it into my notebook. The other 2 towns didn't hit the same. They were fine, clean, friendly, but not alive in the way Ashland was. So I came back. Found a 1-bedroom above the old post office. Bought a used bike. Applied for part-time work at the bookstore. Lane hired me without an interview. You already listen better than most. Weeks passed. Then months. And somewhere along the way, the version of me I used to be faded. Not erased, just integrated. Like rings in a tree, still there, still part of the structure, but no longer the outermost layer. One morning, I got a letter. No return address. Neat handwriting. It was from Lauren. I almost didn't open it. But I did. She wrote about starting therapy. About finally understanding why she'd pulled away. Why she'd tested me. Why she felt more in control when she was hiding. She said she wasn't asking to reconnect. She just wanted me to know she'd finally seen it. Not just what she did, but who I was. You were the safest place I'd ever known. And I didn't know how to live without chaos. I read it once. Then again. Then I burned it. Not out of anger. Out of reverence. Because some goodbyes don't need echoes. I don't carry Lauren with me anymore. Not the betrayal. Not the silence. Not even the guilt. What I carry is the green notebook. Still half full. Still open on the desk near my window. And some nights, I write in it. She loved a version of me that was small enough to manage. I became a version of me that doesn't fit in that frame anymore. Some love stories end not with a bang, but with a whisper you no longer answer. I wasn't broken when I left. I was breaking open. And now, I'm something else entirely. Lauren never met this version of me. But I have. And that's enough.